In a world full of noise, the loudest voice rarely wins. Influence belongs to those who speak less, listen more, and act with intention. Every word you say carries weight, if you choose them carefully. This is your guide to commanding attention, respect, and authority without raising your voice. Introduction: The Silent Power of Influence. In a world where everyone seems to be speaking, competing, and rushing to be heard, there is a rare and powerful advantage in speaking less. Influence is not about talking more, dominating conversations, or proving yourself at every turn. True influence is subtle, deliberate, and grounded in presence. It is the art of commanding attention without shouting, guiding outcomes without force, and asserting authority without aggression. Those who have mastered this art do not need to be the loudest in the room, they simply become the most memorable, respected, and followed. This book is not a manual for manipulation or control. It is a guide to mastering yourself, your words, and your presence so that your influence flows naturally, effortlessly, and powerfully. Through the principles explored here, strategic silence, calm speech, careful observation, deliberate pauses, and mastery of nonverbal cues, you will learn to transform every conversation, negotiation, and social interaction into an opportunity for command. Whether you are leading a team, negotiating a deal, resolving conflict, or navigating social spaces, the techniques in this book will allow you to speak less and achieve more. Chapter 1: The Power of Silence: Why Fewer Words Create Greater Influence. Silence, the hidden language of influence. Silence has always been misunderstood. Most people treat silence as an empty space that must be filled, a sign of weakness, or a moment of uncertainty. But the truth is the opposite: silence is one of the strongest forms of communication a person can use. When the world grows louder, when everyone is trying to talk over each other, trying to prove themselves with more words, the person who remains calm and quiet immediately stands out. Their silence isn't emptiness, it is presence. It is influence. It is a signal that they do not need noise to be powerful. Why people respect those who speak less. People who use silence intentionally are often respected more than those who speak constantly. This is because humans naturally value what is scarce. Words that are rare feel more important. A person who speaks less is assumed to be wiser, more thoughtful, and more disciplined with their emotions. Their quietness creates curiosity. Others watch them more closely. They wonder what they are thinking, what they are observing, what they are planning to say when they finally choose to speak. In a world full of impulsive speech, stillness becomes a rare form of authority. Silence creates anticipation and presence. Silence creates anticipation, and anticipation creates influence. When someone pauses before speaking, the entire room shifts. People lean forward. Their attention sharpens. Their mind prepares to absorb something meaningful. That moment of silence becomes a stage, and the person who controls it commands the environment. Speaking instantly is ordinary, speaking slowly and deliberately is powerful. Silence is the force that makes others listen more deeply, because it interrupts the noise they are used to drowning in. The confidence behind quietness. Silence also communicates confidence in a way words never can. Insecure people rush to fill every quiet moment. They panic when things go silent because silence exposes their thoughts, their emotions, their discomfort. Confident people do not fear these spaces. They allow pauses naturally. They wait before responding. They do not chase approval by speaking quickly. Their silence tells the world, I am not threatened by this moment. I control my reaction. I control myself. That level of calmness makes others trust them, respect them, and instinctively follow their lead. The observational power of silence. When you choose to be silent, you gain a deeper understanding of every situation. You start hearing the truth behind words, the tone shifts, the hesitation, the hidden meanings. You notice what people are not saying. You observe body language, small expressions, and emotional cues that others miss. Silence lets you gather information, analyze the environment, and predict the direction of a conversation before it even happens. This is one of the greatest advantages silent people have. While others speak, they study. And the person who studies always has the upper hand. Strategic silence in social and professional situations. Silence becomes even more powerful when used strategically in conversations. A well-timed pause can make someone reveal far more than they intended. When you don't rush to respond, people continue speaking to fill the quiet space you created, and in doing so, they expose their real thoughts, insecurities, and intentions. In negotiations, silence places pressure on the other side. In conflicts, silence prevents escalation. In leadership, silence demonstrates authority. The ability to stay quiet in moments where others lose control gives you influence without effort. Speaking with intention, not impulse. Speaking less is not about withholding your voice, it's about choosing your words with intention. It means allowing your mind to lead your speech, not your emotions. Silence gives you time to think before you respond. It protects you from saying things you regret. It ensures that when you speak, your words come from clarity, strength, and purpose. Nothing weakens influence more than impulsive speech. People who talk without thinking give away their power. People who think before talking protect it. The inner discipline of silence. Silence also shapes your inner world. When you give yourself moments of quiet, you gain control over your emotions. You stop reacting automatically. You begin responding with thought, patience, and maturity. These internal moments of silence help you understand yourself, calm your mind, and strengthen your ability to navigate challenges. Influence always begins within. Before you can command others, you must learn to command your own reactions. Silence is the tool that makes this possible. Becoming a quiet, commanding presence. People who master silence develop an identity that others cannot ignore. They appear wise, disciplined, focused, and self-assured. Their presence becomes memorable. They don't need to dominate conversations because their energy speaks for them. They don't need to explain themselves endlessly because their silence creates respect. They become the type of person people listen to, even before they speak. And when they finally do speak, every word lands with impact because people know it carries weight. Chapter 2, Presence over Volume, Becoming Someone Who Commands Attention. The Power of Presence Over Words. Influence doesn't begin with what you say, it begins with who you appear to be before you say anything. Long before people hear your voice, they notice your presence. They read your energy. They judge your confidence. They feel your intention. Some people walk into a room silently, yet every head turns. They don't speak loudly, but their aura speaks for them. Their presence creates gravity, and others naturally respond to it. This is the foundation of commanding attention without needing more words. Your presence becomes the message, and people instinctively know they are in front of someone who carries weight. Why loud people are not truly influential. Many people assume that being loud or talking more makes them noticeable. In reality, it makes them forgettable. Noise fades quickly, but presence leaves an imprint. Loud people fight for attention, influential people attract it without effort. When someone relies on volume, they signal insecurity, an inner belief that without noise, they will not be valued. But those who rely on presence do the opposite, they reveal that their confidence comes from within, not from how much space they take with their voice. People may hear the loud ones temporarily, but they remember the quiet one with the steady, unshakable presence. How presence communicates strength instantly. Presence communicates confidence faster than words ever can. The way you stand, the way you breathe, the way you make eye contact, the way you enter a space, all of these speak louder than your voice. Humans are wired to read dominance, confidence, and status through body language before anything else. When your movements are calm and deliberate, when your posture is strong, when your expression is composed, people subconsciously place you in a position of authority. You don't have to fight for a role, your presence claims it for you. This immediate perception of strength makes people take you seriously before you even open your mouth. The art of controlled body language. Body language is a silent language of power, and those who master it can influence without effort. People often reveal insecurity through restless movements, fidgeting, excessive gestures, nervous laughter, or forced expressions. But those who command attention move in a controlled, intentional way. Their gestures are minimal but meaningful. Their posture is open but stable. Their eye contact is steady without being aggressive. This controlled physical presence signals emotional discipline. It shows that you are not ruled by anxiety, urgency, or insecurity. Instead, you move with purpose, and people naturally adjust themselves around you. When you enter a room, the room responds. There are people who walk into a room unseen, and there are people who walk in and instantly become the center of gravity. This has nothing to do with being loud or flashy, it is about the energy you carry with you. When you enter with slow, calm steps, with an upright posture, with awareness of your surroundings, people feel the difference. Presence is felt before it is seen. It changes the atmosphere. Others instinctively quiet down, become more attentive, or even adjust their own posture. Without saying a single word, you have already influenced the environment. This is the silent power of a commanding presence. Why true leaders speak less but impact more. Great leaders throughout history were not known for endless speeches, they were known for meaningful words delivered with strong presence. Their communication was powerful not because they spoke a lot, but because everything they said carried conviction. Their pauses had weight. Their eye contact had intensity. Their tone remained steady. People listened not because they were loud, but because they embodied certainty. Leadership is not about dominating conversations, it is about setting a tone. When your presence is grounded, your influence becomes natural. People feel they can trust you, follow you, and rely on your decisions. How inner stillness shapes outer confidence. Presence does not come from physical appearance alone, it comes from inner stillness. When your mind is calm, your body becomes calm. When your emotions are centered, your posture strengthens naturally. When you are not mentally scattered, your presence becomes focused. This internal quietness radiates outward and creates a magnetic field around you. People can sense emotional chaos, and they can sense emotional control. A person who carries themselves with inner stillness becomes someone others feel safe around, someone who brings clarity into chaotic situations. That emotional stability is a rare form of power. The psychology of being unshakable. To command attention, you must be someone who cannot be easily rattled. When you don't react to every small thing, people assume you see the bigger picture. When you maintain your calm in stressful moments, people view you as strong. When you don't let others manipulate your emotions, you become unpredictable in a powerful way. This unshakable presence makes others respect you, sometimes even fear disappointing you. They know you won't be swayed by pressure or overwhelmed by noise. Your steadiness becomes your strength, and your strength becomes your influence. Presence as your permanent identity. Over time, presence becomes part of who you are, not something you perform, but something you embody. You no longer need to remind yourself to stay calm, calmness becomes your natural state. You no longer need to force confidence, confidence becomes your default energy. People begin seeing you as someone who leads through presence alone. They listen when you speak because your silence has already earned their attention. They follow your direction because your energy shows you know where you are going. Presence becomes your signature, and the world responds to it. Chapter 3: Mastering Micro-Expressions and Body Language. The silent signals that reveal everything. Every human being carries a second language, one far more honest, faster, and more revealing than spoken words. This language is body language, expressed through posture, gestures, breathing patterns, and micro-expressions that flash across the face in less than a second. Most people do not control these signals consciously, which is why they expose so much truth. When you learn to read these small cues, you gain insight into people's emotions, intentions, fears, and confidence levels long before they say anything. You begin to understand the true conversation beneath the spoken conversation. Mastering this silent language gives you a level of influence and awareness that people instantly feel. Why micro-expressions are more honest than words. Words can be rehearsed, edited, or manipulated, but micro-expressions cannot. They appear instantly, triggered by genuine emotion, and vanish just as quickly. A slight twitch of the eyebrow, a flicker of the mouth, a tiny tightening around the eyes, these brief movements reveal whether someone is nervous, confident, lying, uncertain, or even intimidated. Most people never notice them because they are too busy speaking or thinking about what to say next. But the moment you start observing carefully, you begin seeing emotional truths hidden in plain sight. You realize how much people accidentally reveal, even when they believe they are hiding it. Reading faces, the window into emotional truth. The human face is the most expressive part of the body, constantly shifting to reveal inner feelings. A fake smile cannot hide tension around the eyes. A person claiming confidence cannot conceal the small tightening of their jaw. Someone who pretends to be calm still shows stress in the muscles around their forehead. The face always tells the truth before the voice does. When you learn to spot these subtle signals, every conversation becomes clearer. You understand what the other person truly feels, and once you understand what someone feels, you understand what they will do next. This gives you quiet control over the direction of any interaction. Body posture as an unspoken story. Beyond micro-expressions, the body tells a broader story. The way someone stands, sits, and moves reveals their inner state. A person leaning forward with open shoulders is engaged, someone leaning back with crossed arms is defensive. Rapid movements suggest anxiety, while slow, deliberate movements reflect confidence. People who feel insecure shrink themselves, pulling their limbs inward, while those who feel powerful expand naturally. When you notice these patterns, you no longer rely on spoken words alone, you read the emotional atmosphere of a room instantly. You begin to understand who feels dominant, who feels threatened, and who seeks approval or support. The power of controlled nonverbal communication. Just as you learn to read others, you must learn to control your own nonverbal signals. The world forms opinions about you within seconds based on how you stand, move, and hold yourself. If your posture slouches or your gestures are frantic, you signal that you are unsure of yourself. But when your movements are calm, slow, and intentional, you give off an aura of strength. Composure is silent confidence. It tells people you are in control of your emotions and your environment. Mastering your body language is not about faking confidence, it is about training your body to reflect the confidence you are building within. The eyes, where power and vulnerability are exposed. The eyes are the strongest nonverbal communicator. They reveal dominance, fear, attraction, uncertainty, sincerity, and confidence without a single word. Steady eye contact shows certainty, rapid blinking reveals stress, avoiding eye contact signals insecurity or hidden intentions. When someone looks down after speaking, they often doubt their own words. When they look away while answering, they hide something. When they hold your gaze naturally, they feel aligned with their message. Learning to interpret these signals allows you to evaluate truth, sincerity, and emotional strength instantly. And controlling your own eye contact allows you to project authority and command respect without uttering a sentence. Mirror neurons and subconscious influence. Humans subconsciously mirror the body language of those they trust or admire. When you remain calm, others become calmer. When your posture is strong, others adjust theirs. When you speak softly but confidently, people quiet down to match your tone. This mirroring effect is a powerful psychological phenomenon. It allows you to influence others without telling them what to do. You guide the emotional temperature of the room simply by maintaining your own presence. People feel drawn to those who make them feel balanced, steady, and understood, and mastering body language allows you to create this effect naturally. How to detect hidden tension and dishonesty. No matter how carefully someone chooses their words, their body will reveal what they want to hide. Nervous gestures, sudden swallowing, shoulder tensing, or shifting weight from one foot to another, all are signals of internal conflict. A person lying may over-explain, add unnecessary details, or avoid stillness. Their micro-expressions might show fear or guilt, even if their voice sounds confident. When you learn to spot these cues, you can sense dishonesty long before it becomes obvious. This ability protects you, empowers your decisions, and gives you a quiet advantage in negotiations, relationships, and leadership situations. Becoming fluent in the unspoken language. Mastering micro-expressions and body language is not about manipulation, it is about understanding. When you see people honestly, you respond wisely. You communicate more effectively. You help others open up because you know how to create emotional safety. You choose the right words because you understand the emotional state behind the conversation. Over time, this skill becomes part of who you are. You no longer guess what people feel, you perceive it. You no longer react impulsively, you respond intelligently. This fluency in the unspoken language makes you a more influential, intuitive, and grounded person. Chapter 4, Calm Speech, Strong Impact, The Psychology of Slow, Measured Words. The voice that shapes perception. Your voice is not just a sound, it is an emotional signal. Every time you speak, people read your certainty, your confidence, your inner state, and your control. Calm, steady speech sends a message without you needing to explain anything. I am not in a rush. I am not threatened. I am not desperate to be understood. You create an atmosphere around yourself simply by slowing down. When your words arrive at a gentle, deliberate pace, people instinctively relax, or pay closer attention. The mind is drawn to stillness, to steadiness, to voices that feel anchored rather than chaotic. In a noisy world, calm speech becomes a form of gravity, pulling attention without effort. You stop sounding like someone fighting for space and start sounding like someone who owns it. How slow words create stronger influence. Fast speakers are often perceived as anxious, uncertain, or trying to prove themselves. But slow, measured words feel intentional. They carry weight because they give your thoughts room to breathe. When you speak slowly, people assume you are thoughtful, composed, and sure of the message you are delivering. You don't ramble. You don't chase validation. You don't fill silences with noise. And because of that, every sentence you speak feels more valuable. Even simple statements gain depth. Calm speech makes the listener work a little harder, not because the message is complicated, but because your delivery invites them to pay attention. The fewer unnecessary words you use, the more meaningful your presence becomes. The rhythm that controls the room. People unconsciously adjust their emotional tempo to match the person who seems most in control. When you remain calm, especially in tense situations, you set the rhythm for everyone else. You slow the energy of the room. You quiet the emotional noise. You take ownership of the entire interaction because you refuse to be hurried. Calm speech creates a psychological effect. The listener feels that you are the stabilizing force, the anchor, the one who doesn't get swept away. And when someone senses you cannot be rushed, they begin to see you as someone who cannot be manipulated. Your pace becomes their pace. Your calm becomes their calm. This is quiet leadership, displayed through your voice alone. Breath, tone, and the power of a grounded voice. Your breath is the foundation of your voice. When you speak slowly, your breathing deepens. Your tone drops into a steadier, more resonant place. That resonance creates authority, not through force, but through stability. People trust voices that don't shake. People follow voices that don't race. Even if you say very little, a calm tone makes your presence feel larger. Your words begin to land differently. They sound final, certain, and deliberate. This is why calm speakers often seem wiser or more experienced. They speak from a place of inner stillness rather than emotional reaction. They think while they talk. They choose instead of react. And others feel that difference instantly. Emotional control hidden inside your pacing. Calm speech is more than a communication style, it is a protective boundary. When you slow down, you prevent others from dragging you into their emotional storms. You don't match their anger, their impatience, or their anxiety. You respond from your own center, not theirs. This makes you appear unshakable, even when the situation is intense. People who speak calmly during conflict gain immediate power, because they show they are unaffected. They present strength without aggression. They show certainty without raising their voice. And even the most difficult conversation becomes easier to navigate when your internal emotions are not spilling out through your tone. Calm speech is emotional discipline made audible. Why measured words feel more commanding? When you speak slowly, you create anticipation. People lean forward slightly. They wait for the next sentence. They expect meaning, even before they hear it. This is the true magic of calm speech. It magnifies your presence without you needing to raise your voice or make yourself bigger. It takes your message and coats it in authority. It transforms your simplest ideas into statements people remember. You no longer compete with noise, you rise above it simply by refusing to rush. And when people realize that your silence is deliberate and your words are selective, they automatically see you as someone whose voice matters. You shift from sounding like someone who wants to be heard to someone who deserves to be heard. The identity you build through your voice. Speaking calmly is not just about communication, it becomes part of who you are. People begin to associate your voice with steadiness, clarity, maturity, and leadership. Your presence becomes something others rely on. You project intelligence without trying. You command respect without demanding it. Calm speech slowly shapes your identity in the minds of others, the person who doesn't panic, doesn't overreact, doesn't talk too much, and doesn't lose control. Your voice becomes an extension of your inner discipline. And over time, calm speech becomes more than a technique, it becomes a signature, a quiet strength that separates you from the noise around you. In a world of hurried voices and fast talkers, the calm speaker becomes unforgettable. Chapter 5, Strategic Silence. Using pauses to control any conversation. The hidden power of pauses. Silence is not empty, it is deliberate. In conversation, pauses act like punctuation in writing, they structure meaning, emphasize importance, and control the rhythm of interaction. Most people fear silence. They rush to fill it with words, explanations, or justifications, afraid the quiet will make them seem weak or unprepared. But the reality is the opposite. Strategic pauses give you control. They create space for reflection, for anticipation, and for influence. A pause signals confidence. It tells others that you are fully present, fully aware, and that you do not need to speak just to prove your presence. In the pauses, your power quietly grows. How silence shapes perception. When you pause before responding, people notice. They may not consciously think about it, but they feel it. Your silence communicates thoughtfulness, patience, and authority. It makes your eventual words heavier, more significant, more memorable. People naturally interpret those who pause as confident, intelligent, and in control. By contrast, someone who speaks immediately after every question or comment appears reactive, anxious, or emotionally driven. Pauses shift perception without effort. They allow you to steer the emotional tone of any interaction. The more intentional your silence, the more influence you carry over the listener's attention, emotions, and expectations. Creating anticipation and respect. One of the greatest effects of strategic silence is anticipation. When you pause at the right moment, the listener unconsciously leans forward, waiting. They start to value your words more simply because they have to wait for them. Silence adds weight. It makes ordinary statements feel extraordinary. People respect those who speak selectively because it signals that every word has meaning. Over time, this pattern establishes a psychological contract. When you speak, people listen. They expect significance, insight, or clarity. The moment you master pauses, you no longer compete for attention, you command it. Using pauses to gain information. Pauses are not just tools for influence, they are tools for observation. When you allow silence in a conversation, others feel compelled to fill the space. In doing so, they reveal more than they intended. They expose their true thoughts, emotions, and intentions. Negotiators, leaders, and psychologists have long understood this principle. By staying quiet, you invite others to reveal themselves. The pause becomes a mirror for the speaker's internal state, and you gain insight without asking a single direct question. The more you practice strategic silence, the more attuned you become to the subtle cues and truths that words alone often hide. The rhythm of conversation. Every conversation has a rhythm. Most people fail to notice it because they are too busy thinking about what to say next. When you pause strategically, you take control of that rhythm. You slow the tempo, you shape the flow, and you set the tone. People unconsciously adjust to your pace. They stop interrupting, over-talking, or rushing the dialogue. In tense situations, a well-placed pause diffuses urgency or aggression. In negotiations, it creates pressure and compels others to reveal more. Strategic silence is like conducting an orchestra. You don't need to play every note, but your presence determines how the music unfolds. Calmness through silence. Silence also communicates emotional stability. When you pause instead of reacting impulsively, you project composure and confidence. People notice when someone can remain quiet under pressure. They notice when reactions are measured instead of immediate. Strategic silence allows you to respond with intention rather than emotion. It gives you time to evaluate the situation, think clearly, and choose words that reinforce your authority. A person who pauses is unshakable in appearance, even when challenges arise. Their silence tells the world that they are not a victim of circumstance, they are the master of it. Pauses in leadership and influence. Leaders who master pauses never feel the need to fill every moment with speech. They understand that influence is less about words and more about presence, timing, and perception. A pause before answering a question, before giving feedback, or before making a decision communicates thoughtfulness, authority, and control. In public speaking, negotiation, or everyday interactions, strategic silence signals mastery. Others trust the person who speaks deliberately, because that person clearly values their words and their impact. Every pause becomes a tool for shaping respect, guiding dialogue, and reinforcing influence. Making silence a habit. To use pauses effectively, you must make them habitual. It begins with awareness, noticing how often you rush to fill silence, and deliberately allowing small gaps in conversation. Over time, you learn the right length, the right timing, and the right placement. The pause stops being uncomfortable and becomes natural. You start using silence to observe, guide, and assert influence effortlessly. Strategic silence eventually becomes an extension of your presence, a way to communicate strength, confidence, and composure without ever raising your voice. The less you speak, the more your presence speaks for you. Chapter 6: How Leaders Win with Fewer Words. The Subtle Power of Restraint. True leaders understand that influence is rarely created by talking more, it is created by speaking less, and by speaking strategically. The ability to remain quiet while others fill the air with noise is one of the most powerful tools a leader can possess. Those who over-explain, over-justify, or rush to express every thought often appear insecure, reactive, or scattered. In contrast, leaders who choose their words deliberately project authority, composure, and clarity. People instinctively pay attention to those who speak selectively because they sense that each word has purpose. Leadership is not about dominating conversations with volume, it is about dominating perception with control and intention. The weight of fewer words. When leaders speak less, every word they do speak carries weight. Silence creates anticipation. People lean in. They analyze every phrase, every pause, every subtle inflection. Ordinary statements become powerful messages simply because they are scarce. In leadership, this is invaluable. Teams, colleagues, and even rivals listen more closely, respond more thoughtfully, and respect decisions more deeply when they are delivered with brevity and clarity. The fewer words you use, the more authority your words hold. It is a principle that has been true in boardrooms, battlefields, and negotiations for centuries. Less is more, and silence is a leader's most underestimated tool. Observing more, acting smarter. Leaders who speak less also gain the advantage of observation. While others are busy talking, debating, or over-explaining, the quiet leader is listening, studying, and analyzing. They notice patterns, read intentions, and detect the subtle cues that reveal hidden truths. Micro-expressions, tone shifts, body posture, all become visible to the leader who is patient enough to remain silent. This awareness allows leaders to act decisively, respond strategically, and influence outcomes with precision. Speaking less is not avoidance, it is preparation. It is gathering information, building insight, and moving from a position of understanding rather than reaction. Commanding respect without aggression. The ability to lead with fewer words is a demonstration of emotional control and inner strength. Leaders who dominate conversations often rely on volume or force, those who lead with silence rely on respect. When a leader pauses before speaking, allows others to fill space, and responds with deliberate clarity, they create authority effortlessly. People follow those who do not need to argue, justify, or explain themselves constantly. Silence communicates confidence. The unspoken message is that the leader knows their priorities, trusts their judgment, and is not easily swayed by pressure or chaos. This is influence without aggression, power without noise. Strategic communication in leadership. Leadership is fundamentally about influence, guidance, and direction. Strategic silence allows leaders to control the flow of communication. Pauses create tension and focus, drawing attention to critical points. Brevity ensures clarity, preventing confusion or dilution of meaning. A well-timed word, spoken slowly and intentionally, can resolve conflict, inspire teams, and assert authority in a way that countless words never could. Leaders who master this art do not rely on charisma alone, they rely on presence, timing, and emotional intelligence. The leader's voice becomes a tool, not a weapon. Every sentence is a lever, every pause a silent command. The confidence behind restraint. To speak less effectively, a leader must first cultivate confidence. Silence exposes you, it requires emotional discipline and belief in your own judgment. An insecure person rushes to fill every pause, to over-explain, to justify every thought. A confident leader remains steady, knowing that their presence, insight, and decisions carry weight even before a word is spoken. The power of fewer words lies in this confidence. It signals certainty to others, creating trust and loyalty. When people sense that a leader is unshakable and deliberate, they naturally follow, listen, and act with conviction. Confidence turns quiet into authority. Influence beyond words. Leadership is not measured by how much you speak, but by how deeply your influence resonates. A leader who speaks less creates space for others to engage, think, and reflect. They guide without dominating. They inspire without shouting. They enforce without threatening. Words are chosen for maximum impact, delivered with calm precision, and reinforced by presence and body language. In this way, silence amplifies influence. It transforms ordinary leaders into those whose decisions carry authority, whose guidance inspires trust, and whose presence commands attention without a single unnecessary word. The habit of thoughtful leadership. Becoming a leader who wins with fewer words requires practice, patience, and self-awareness. It means recognizing the value of silence, slowing your speech, and observing before reacting. It requires learning when to interject and when to let others reveal themselves. It involves understanding that influence is created more by presence than by volume, more by intention than by impulse. Leaders who internalize this principle cultivate respect effortlessly. They do not need to dominate conversations or assert themselves constantly. Their power is quiet, steady, and enduring, a force that inspires trust, commands attention, and moves people without unnecessary noise. Chapter 7, Negotiation and Persuasion, the Quiet Advantage. The influence of restraint in negotiation. Negotiation is often mistaken for a battle of words, a contest of who can talk louder, argue longer, or dominate the conversation. But the most effective negotiators understand the quiet advantage. Speaking less, listening more, and letting the silence do the work. When you remain calm and measured, your words gain weight. The other party feels the pressure of the quiet space, often revealing more than they intended. Pauses are not empty, they are strategic instruments that force reflection, encourage honesty, and create anticipation. In every deal, every discussion, every subtle power shift, silence becomes your ally, giving you control without aggression. Listening as a tool of power. Listening is the most underestimated tool in persuasion. While others rush to respond, explain, or justify, you remain attentive, observing every subtle cue, the shift in tone, the hesitation in their words, the micro-expressions that betray true feelings. Every detail matters. By truly listening, you gain information, clarity, and insight into the desires, fears, and motivations of the other party. The more you understand their unspoken needs, the more effectively you can guide the conversation. In negotiation, knowledge is influence, and silence allows you to gather that knowledge effortlessly. The quieter you are, the louder your awareness becomes. The psychological weight of pauses. Pauses are not merely gaps between words, they are psychological tools. A well-timed pause creates tension, signals thoughtfulness, and compels others to fill the silence, often revealing information or making concessions. People instinctively try to ease uncomfortable quiet, and in doing so, they often surrender control. By pausing before responding, you position yourself as deliberate, composed, and unshakable. Your calm presence amplifies every word you speak, transforming ordinary statements into persuasive tools. In the quiet between exchanges, the balance of power shifts subtly but undeniably in your favor. The art of saying less, gaining more. True persuasion is rarely achieved by verbosity. The person who speaks excessively risks diluting meaning, revealing weakness, or creating doubt. In contrast, those who speak sparingly are perceived as confident, knowledgeable, and in command. Each word they choose is measured, intentional, and impactful. Saying less does not mean being silent, it means being strategic, ensuring that every sentence carries maximum influence. People listen differently to someone who speaks infrequently but decisively, they weigh each word, consider each statement, and respond thoughtfully. In negotiation, this restraint becomes a subtle form of leverage, shaping outcomes without confrontation. Influence through observation. Silence gives you the ability to read beyond words. Negotiation is not just a battle of arguments, it is a dance of signals, intentions, and emotions. While others focus on speaking, you notice patterns, when they hesitate, when they overcompensate, when their tone shifts under pressure. You observe micro-expressions, body language, and energy that reveal their true position, even when their words mask it. This observational skill allows you to respond strategically, guiding the conversation with precision. The quiet negotiator has an advantage because they see more, know more, and act from insight rather than reaction. Calmness as persuasion. Emotional stability is one of the most persuasive tools in any negotiation. When you remain calm, you project authority and credibility. Your presence reassures, influences, and subtly pressures others to match your composure. People are more likely to listen, consider, and concede to someone who remains steady under scrutiny, tension, or conflict. Calm speech and measured pauses signal that you are not reacting to their attempts at manipulation or urgency. Your self-control becomes a silent force, guiding the negotiation toward outcomes favorable to you. Persuasion is not about being loud or insistent, it is about being unshakable. The strategic use of silence in influence. Every negotiation and persuasive conversation has moments where silence becomes a weapon of subtle control. It allows you to set the pace, manage expectations, and extract concessions without demanding them. When used thoughtfully, silence communicates confidence, discourages impulsive reactions, and creates a sense of scarcity around your words. People naturally assign value to the quiet, assuming that someone who speaks deliberately has insight, expertise, and authority. This transforms silence into an active strategy rather than a passive absence. By mastering the quiet advantage, you gain influence in ways that words alone could never achieve. Building long-term influence. Mastery of strategic silence and calm speech does not just benefit immediate negotiations, it builds lasting influence. People remember those who speak with intention, pause with purpose, and command attention without force. Their reputation grows as someone deliberate, trustworthy, and confident. Over time, this influence compounds. Teams follow them, peers defer to their judgment, and adversaries hesitate to challenge them. The quiet persuader becomes a magnetic figure, capable of shaping outcomes effortlessly because their presence carries authority, their words carry weight, and their silence commands respect. Chapter 8, Handling Conflict, Dominance Without Raising Your Voice. The hidden power of calm in conflict. Conflict is often mistaken for a battle of volume, aggression, or forceful arguments. Many people believe that the louder, faster, or more insistent party wins. But true dominance in conflict comes not from shouting or over-explaining, it comes from calm, controlled presence. The person who remains composed, observes carefully, and chooses words deliberately holds the real power. Calmness in conflict signals self-control, authority, and resilience. Others instinctively measure themselves against this calm. They may speak louder, move faster, or try to provoke a reaction. But your unshakable demeanor shifts the balance of power without a single raised voice. Listening first, speaking second. The first step in mastering conflict is to listen more than you speak. When tension rises, most people feel compelled to respond immediately, to defend themselves, or to attack. But the strategic person waits, observes, and absorbs every detail, tone of voice, body language, choice of words, hesitation, and micro-expressions. This deliberate observation provides invaluable insight into motives, fears, and weaknesses. By understanding the true emotions and intentions behind the other person's words, you gain the advantage. You can respond with precision, rather than reaction, turning the conflict into a controlled negotiation instead of a chaotic argument. The authority of a measured voice. A calm, steady voice communicates dominance more effectively than aggression. When others escalate, a slow, deliberate tone commands attention and redirects energy. It signals that you are in control of your emotions and the situation. Words delivered in this way carry weight because they are not rushed or emotional, they are intentional. In conflict, people unconsciously defer to those who seem grounded, steady, and unflappable. Your voice becomes a tool of influence, shaping perception and guiding outcomes without ever needing to raise it. Calm speech communicates strength in a way that anger or volume never can. Pauses as a tool for control. Silence in conflict is not weakness, it is strategy. Strategic pauses create space for reflection, tension, and influence. When the other party expects a quick response, your pause disrupts their rhythm, forcing them to reconsider their approach. They may reveal more than they intended, rethink their demands, or become more willing to compromise. Pauses also give you time to process, to respond deliberately rather than react impulsively. This makes your statements more effective and your presence more authoritative. In conflict, silence is a weapon, it allows you to guide the conversation, control the pace, and shape the outcome. Reading emotional cues. Every argument carries emotional signals beyond words, clenched jaws, shifting posture, rapid breathing, or a fleeting look of doubt. Mastering conflict means noticing these cues and using them to guide your response. The person who can read these subtle signals can adjust their own behavior, anticipate reactions, and influence the other party's emotional state. Observing tension without reacting shows dominance. People feel that you are unshakable, aware, and prepared. By understanding the unspoken, you gain control of the spoken, and by controlling the spoken, you shape the entire conflict. Redirecting energy without confrontation. Dominance in conflict does not require confrontation. In fact, escalation often undermines authority. Instead, redirecting the energy of the situation achieves far more. A calm question, a thoughtful observation, or a deliberate pause can diffuse tension while subtly asserting control. By remaining centered and composed, you influence the emotional tone of the room. People respond to your stability, not their own agitation. When you redirect energy without aggression, you become the anchor of the conversation, guiding it toward resolution on your terms. This form of dominance is quiet, subtle, and far more effective than noise. The role of presence and body language. Conflict is not just verbal, it is deeply physical. Your posture, gestures, and movements communicate authority. Standing tall, maintaining open and balanced posture, and using controlled gestures project confidence. Eye contact signals awareness and presence. Even when words are few, your body communicates control. Conversely, fidgeting, defensive posture, or rushed movements reveal insecurity and weaken influence. Mastering body language in conflict reinforces calm speech and strategic silence, making your presence impossible to ignore. Dominance becomes embodied, silent, and unmistakable. Turning conflict into influence. When conflict is handled with calm, measured presence, it transforms from a challenge into an opportunity. Every disagreement becomes a chance to demonstrate authority, influence perception, and guide outcomes. Others recognize competence, restraint, and intelligence. They respect decisions more deeply, comply more willingly, and trust judgment more fully. By speaking less, listening more, pausing strategically, and embodying calm, you assert dominance without aggression. Conflict ceases to be chaotic, it becomes a stage for influence, a demonstration of strength, and a testament to the power of controlled presence. Chapter 9, Influence in Social Settings, the Silent Magnet. The unseen force of presence. In social settings, influence is rarely about speaking first, speaking loudest, or dominating every conversation. The most magnetic individuals draw attention not through noise, but through the quiet power of presence. They exude calm confidence, listen attentively, and speak with purpose. People naturally gravitate toward those who seem centered, composed, and aware. Their energy fills the room without effort, creating an unspoken gravity that attracts others. Influence in social settings is less about what you say and more about how you make people feel, how your presence resonates, and how your measured actions communicate strength and trustworthiness. Listening as a social strategy. True social influence begins with listening. While others focus on showcasing knowledge, impressing peers, or dominating conversation, the quiet observer gathers information. They notice nuances in tone, shifts in energy, gestures, micro-expressions, and unspoken emotions. By paying attention to these subtle cues, they understand the true dynamics of the room, the unspoken hierarchy, who seeks approval, who feels threatened, and who drives the conversation. This awareness allows them to intervene strategically, respond intentionally, and guide interactions with precision. Listening is not passive, it is the foundation of social command. The art of entering and leaving conversations. A silent magnet understands timing. They know when to join a conversation and when to exit, never forcing themselves into spaces or overstaying their welcome. Entering at the right moment conveys confidence, while leaving deliberately creates curiosity and anticipation. People remember those who appear selectively, who do not need constant validation, and who let their presence be noticed rather than demanded. The silent magnet does not chase attention, they attract it naturally through restraint, awareness, and the subtle power of their movements and expressions. Micro-expressions and social intuition. Social influence relies heavily on perception. A small smile, a brief nod, a carefully timed gesture, these micro-expressions communicate trust, interest, and empathy without a single word. Observing how others respond to these cues provides instant insight into their feelings and intentions. By mastering subtle nonverbal communication, you guide interactions naturally, making people feel understood, valued, and drawn to your energy. Influence is less about persuasion through speech and more about shaping the emotional currents around you, steering them with a quiet, unspoken skill. Calm speech in crowded spaces. Even in a room full of chatter, a calm, measured voice stands out. The silent magnet does not compete with noise, they rise above it. Each word they choose carries weight because it is deliberate and intentional. People naturally pay attention to someone who speaks with clarity, poise, and authority in contrast to the chaos around them. Calm speech signals confidence, composure, and self-assurance, creating an aura of quiet leadership. Others respond instinctively to this energy, aligning with it, respecting it, and being influenced by it without realizing why. The influence of observed composure. Emotional stability is contagious. In social interactions, those who remain calm under pressure, humor, or tension shape the emotional state of the group. People mirror the composure, confidence, and steadiness of the silent magnet. Arguments de-escalate, anxiety subside, and attention is naturally directed toward the composed individual. Influence in social settings is subtle, it is about controlling the emotional climate, not overtly controlling people. The quieter, calmer, and more present you are, the more naturally others adjust to your rhythm and follow your lead. Strategic silence in social dynamics. Silence in conversation is not emptiness, it is opportunity. By pausing at critical moments, the silent magnet encourages others to reveal more, express themselves, and engage. Strategic pauses create anticipation and importance around your words. People listen more carefully, react more thoughtfully, and subconsciously assign value to the presence of someone who speaks selectively. Mastering silence allows you to dominate social dynamics without speaking constantly, to guide attention without forcing it, and to create influence that feels effortless to everyone around you. Building lasting social influence. Influence in social settings is cumulative. Each carefully observed interaction, each well-timed pause, each deliberate word adds to a reputation of composure, intelligence, and authority. People remember those who speak with purpose, move with intention, and listen with awareness. Over time, the silent magnet becomes a central figure, someone others naturally defer to, seek out, and trust. Influence is not created by loudness or volume, it is cultivated through presence, restraint, and mastery of subtle human dynamics. Speak less, observe more, and let your presence magnetize the room. Conclusion: the quiet force within you. In the end, influence is not earned through volume, speed, or endless talking, it is earned through presence, clarity, and intention. When you choose your words with purpose, when you listen before you speak, and when your actions match your calm, confident silence, you become someone others naturally follow. Speaking less is not about withholding your thoughts, it's about amplifying your impact. As you move forward, carry the lessons of strategic silence, controlled expression, and powerful nonverbal communication into every interaction. Let your calm be your authority. Let your clarity be your strength. And let your silence say what words never could. You now hold the tools to influence without force, to lead without noise, and to command any room without raising your voice. The power is already within you, quiet, steady, and undeniable. Use it wisely.